to the Numbers Game, the show where analytics meets the action and data drives the decisions. I'm Cynthia Frelund. It is the NFL postseason, and this is our NFC Divisional Round Primer, where together we will dive deep into the stats that define this week's matchups between the Commanders and Lions and Rams and Eagles to determine who will advance to the NFC Championship game next weekend. Together, we will uncover how the numbers make all the difference, because it's not just about what happens, it's about why it happens and how the data helps tell the story. Thank you again for kindness over the past week with regards to these horrible, devastating, terrible fires. My family and I had a chance to spend some time helping out with relief efforts, and there were so many people and businesses pitching in, which is incredible to see and experience. There's always a silver lining, and that was it. And as you may have guessed, I am a big dog lover, and Petco, they were awesome. They gave us 50% off of the supplies that we bought to donate, which means I got to double my impact and that I'm going to be even more loyal to Petco. But they also honored this discount for so many people that I know. So I really want to give them a little bit more love, because doing things like that is just extra special and really important. Thank you for letting me share that. And as always, I'm so grateful for the time and energy you spend here with me. Before we move forward, let's recap the wildcard round, where my model went 4 wins and 2 losses straight up. The same result, 4-2 against the spread and 3-3 on totals, which means that for the 2024 playoffs, 2025 year, I'm tracking at 2/3 wins, both straight up and against the spread, and 50% on totals. And now let's combine that with a regular season. So for all 278 games played so far, I'm 70.9% straight up, 53.6% against the spread, and 49.8% on totals. Detroit plays host to the Commanders on Saturday night in a game where the Lions are favored by 9.5 points, and the total is set at 55.5. Here's a fun trivia note. There have been 3 rookie quarterbacks to win multiple playoff games since 1950. Number 1, Brock Purdy. Okay, that one's easy. Number 2, Mark Sanchez. And number 3, Joe Flacco. An even more exciting note on this one, well, at least to me, is that the Lions and Commanders were the only 2 teams in the NFL to gain over a full game's worth of win probability added as a result of going for it on 4th down this season. Washington converted 20 of 23 4th downs. That is an 87% rate and the highest since at least 1991. And the Lions were 22 of 33. So, just 2/3. That's, I guess it's okay, but not quite 87%. This is a pretty special season to be so good on 4th down, because league-wide, there was actually a decrease in efficiency on 4th down. Usually it tracks around 48%. This season, it was closer to 40%, with most attempts being passes from the shotgun. That is another departure from past tendencies where it was either runs or under center, so quarterback under center, and a run, or perhaps a shove. We see Jalen Hurts do that. But a different thing now with shotgun passes. Now, thinking about the Lions and Commanders results, you can see how their ability and or threat of rushing helped drive their effectiveness. Since Next Gen Stats started tracking in 2016, no rookie quarterback has more completions, 191, passing yards, 1,282, touchdowns, 12, completion percentage, 66%, EPA, or a better passer rating, 115, against the blitz than Jaden Daniels. He was blitzed on 33% of his dropbacks, that's the 6th highest rate, and the Lions blitz at the 6th highest rate since week 7 after losing Aiden Hutchinson. The Lions' blitz was effective, though, because they allowed the 2nd lowest passer rating and 5th lowest success rate and caused the most negative EPA when blitzing, so this is strength on strength. Jaden Daniels also had 79 scramble runs this season, the most by any quarterback in a season since at least 2016. Off of these scrambles, Daniels earned 600 yards and scored once, good for the 2nd highest success rate. He also scrambled 14 times out of empty formations for 163 yards. 6 of those were explosive gains, meaning they earned more than 10 yards, and he converted 9 into first downs. Will the Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn choose a strategy that includes a spy of Jaden Daniels? In terms of stopping runs in general, their inside linebacker, Jack Campbell, notched a run stop on 18% of his run defense snaps. This means 18% of the time, his run tackle resulted in a positive play for the defense. That is the 2nd highest or best rate in the league. Overall, Jack Campbell recorded a tackle in the run game at the 4th highest rate. In Washington's pass catching game, Terry McLaurin led the NFL in receptions with 19, receiving yards with 250, 144, and touchdowns with 7 on tight window targets this season, meaning ones where he had less than 1 yard of separation. These 7 touchdowns are the most in the Next Gen Stats era. The Lions defense plays a lot of man and forced tight windows on 19% of passes this season, the highest rate in the NFL. On Detroit's offensive side of the ball, Jared Goff completed a league-high 71% of his passes against man coverage and threw 20 touchdown passes without a single interception against it, which means all 12 of his interceptions came against zone. That's interesting, and also the third most in the NFL. The good news for Goff is that the Commanders use man on 39% of opponent pass plays this season. That's the 5th highest rate, and they've allowed the 7th highest completion percentage. It's 58%, with 15 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions. Dan Quinn's defense utilized man blitzes on 22% of pass rushes, the 4th highest rate. However, when they did so, they only had about a league average pressure rate of 42%. But the main point here is they had 17 sacks using it, which is tied for the most. Jared Goff had the 2nd highest completion percentage, 69%, and the most touchdowns without an interception, 13 touchdowns, against man blitzes this season, though. Amon-Ra St. Brown has converted 27 first downs against the blitz this season. That is tied for the most in the NFL with Mike Evans. St. Brown has also ranked in the top 2 in first down receptions against the blitz in each of the last 3 seasons and leads the NFL with 88 first downs against the blitz since 2022. Washington allowed the highest explosive pass rate, so passes that go for more than 15 yards, and they did it 22% of the time when they blitzed this season. It looks like we'll be getting both Sonic and Knuckles back in this one, which helps add to a big strength of the Leos. Montgomery and Gibbs ranked 1 and 2 in success rate on rushes from under center formations. Each back scored 8 rushing touchdowns with Goff under center, which is the most by any duo since they combined for 22 such touchdowns last season. Overall, the Lions gained 1,801 yards on designed runs from under center this season, over 400 more than the next closest offense. And they earned 56 explosive runs, so 10-plus yard runs from this formation, and that was 22 more than the next closest offense. They were also consistent here as well, with the 2nd highest success rate on these designed runs. Washington's defense allowed the most yards before contact per carry, 1.8, and highest success rate, 47%, and the 2nd highest explosive run rate, 14%, to under center designed runs. Bottom line, as a fan, I'm a little nervous here, but my math says the Lions win 31-24, and Detroit winning ranks first in confidence on the week of the 4 games. We talked about Goff against man and man blitzes, but the blitz in general is also a strength. Washington brought an extra rusher on defense at the 8th highest rate, 34%, and allowed the 4th highest success rate when they did. Jared Goff has the 2nd best success rate against the blitz, the 3rd most EPA per dropback, and 15 touchdowns. That ranks 5th most. Also, I didn't get to talk about this last week with Detroit's bye, but Amik Robertson allowed a sub-43 completion rate when targeted in man coverage this season. That's the 5th lowest among cornerbacks, despite being targeted 9 more times than any of the 4 players ranked higher than him. Robertson faced 35 targets in man coverage when aligned in the slot specifically, the most in the NFL. Do yourself a favor and watch him getting his game ball after the Week 18 Vikings game. Try not to be motivated. I bet you can't do it. Sunday's NFC Divisional Tilt forecast to be a cold one in Philadelphia. The Rams come to town off of a very special, very emotional wild card win. The Eagles are 6-point home favorites, and the total in this one is 43.5 points. In Week 12, these 2 teams met up in LA, where the Eagles won 37-20. The Rams offense featured motion on 82% of plays this season. That is the 2nd highest rate in the NFL. Matthew Stafford earned the 2nd most passing yards in the league off of these plays, 3,123, and Puka Nacua had the most receiving yards on them at 457. However, the Eagles defense allowed the fewest yards per play in the NFL against plays with motion, just 4.7. In Week 12, though, the Eagles allowed 6 yards per play when the Rams used motion. That's their 3rd most this season. Rams right tackle Rob Havenstein returned from an ankle injury in Week 13, and since then, he's allowed the lowest pressure rate among right tackles, and he allowed 0 pressures last week against Minnesota. LA has only had all four of Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua on the field together for 784 of the team's 2,240 offensive plays since the start of last season, so 2023. That includes the playoffs. With all four together, they've averaged 1.3 more yards per play, a 4% higher success rate, and a 5% higher explosive play rate. That's huge. LA's defense generated a 35% pressure rate in Week 12 against the Eagles, but averaged a time to pressure of over 3.6 seconds in the game. That's their longest of the season. They also blitzed Jalen Hurts on 35% of his dropbacks in that game, the fourth highest rate that they've done this at this season. Jalen Hurts faced pressure in an average of 2.9 seconds this season, the fifth longest in the NFL. When under pressure, he completed just 45% of his passes. That's the 10th lowest rate. And also, he took a sack at the third highest rate, which was 26%. Hurts scrambled on third down at the highest rate in the league and converted 71% of them, or 12 of the 17. Only Jaden Daniels, who had 14 such conversions, had more. Saquon Barkley rushed for 1,050 yards from shotgun formations this season, making him the first player in the Next Gen Stats era to rush for over 1,000 such yards. Barkley rushed from the shotgun on 52% of his carries. That's the fifth highest rate among running backs and the highest rate of his career. Just as an example, from 2018 to 2023 as a Giant, he only did this on 39% of his carries and only gained over 500 yards in a season once, and that was in 2019 when he had 561. In that Week 12 matchup against the Rams, Barkley gained 162 of his career-high 255 rushing yards after contact. That was actually the second most by any player in a game this season. 93 of his yards were therefore before contact, and the Rams defense has allowed the ninth most yards before contact per carry to running backs at 1.2. And they've only contacted them behind the line of scrimmage 36% of the time. That is the fourth lowest mark. On defense, once Cooper DeJean became the starting nickel in Week 6, the Eagles aligned in nickel at the second highest rate in the league, 82%. From Weeks 6 to 18, the Eagles allowed just 4.2 yards per play when in nickel. That is almost a full yard fewer than the next closest team, the Packers at 5.1 yards. The Eagles' yards per play allowed, so that 4.2 number, would be the fewest by any defense if the number were good over the whole season, and that's since at least 2016, which is when we were able to track this. Okay, a few quick tendency notes before the bottom line. Look for Jalen Hurts to target pass catchers outside the numbers. He has the highest volume of passes outside the numbers this season. He also has the highest yard per attempt average against man at 9.6. Look for Matthew Stafford to leverage the designed rollout, which he's done the second most often and for the second most yards and 9 touchdowns, which is the most. Bottom line, I have the Eagles winning 27-20, and Philadelphia winning in general ranks number 2 in confidence for this week's games. 2 advantages drive much of this projection. First, the Eagles' ability to defend the run with a light box, which means 6 or fewer defenders in the box. They use the light box on 69% of rushes in the regular season. That is the most in the NFL by almost 10 percentage points. They've allowed the 6th fewest EPA per carry and 8th lowest rushing success rate with the light box. The Rams' offense has the 2nd fewest EPA per carry and 9th fewest rushing yards over expected, yet went against light boxes. The second advantage is deep passing by Jalen Hurts. His CPOE is the second highest, and EPA per attempt is 4th most. The Rams have allowed 10 deep touchdown passes. That is tied for the 3rd most, and they've allowed the 6th most EPA per deep pass attempt. Which brings us to our NFC Divisional Menu. I'm going to put together 2 3-course menus for you again this week. You can, of course, reconfigure them to make them your own menu, but my first one will feature 2 bland projections and 1 spicy, and the second will be 1 bland and 2 spicy ingredients. Just remember, bland ingredients happen in at least 55% of my simulations, and spicy ones happen in 48%, but they have enough volatility to make the juice worth the squeeze. Menu 1, ingredient 1, the first bland one. I am going to be a cheating cheater here because we didn't do a touchdown list. So here are 3 that are also bland: Saquon Barkley, Jahmyr Gibbs, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Ingredient number 2, the second bland one, which looks a little spicy, but it's bland. Technically, it's bland. Here we go. Jameson Williams to have more than 54.5 receiving yards against the Commanders. Williams gained the most yards after the catch, 292, and the second most total receiving yards, 568, at his wide receiver position across 23 receptions off play action passes this season, and he had 3 touchdowns too. Ingredient number 3. Okay, I'm just going to cheat again here. How about 2 guys who have nice upside in terms of scoring touchdowns? You can put them together, make it whatever you want to do. Terry McLaurin and Puka Nacua, they're going to be on the list as well. On to the second menu for the week. This one is a little hotter. Ingredient number 1, the bland ingredient. A.J. Brown to catch more than 4.5 passes against the Rams. Okay, I also like him to earn more than 69.5 yards, so you can choose here. Brown had the second most receiving yards, 505, most yards per route, 4.2, and tied for the 5th most touchdowns. He had 6 against man coverage this season, and the Rams play man on about 73% of dropbacks. Ingredient number 2. This one is spicy. It's Zach Ertz to have more than 29.5 receiving yards against the Lions. On 3rd and 4th downs, Daniels has an over 109 passer rating when targeting Ertz. And on any down when Daniels is blitzed, his passer rating to Ertz is over 123 with 3 touchdowns. Ingredient number 3, this one's spicy, interesting number, Devontae Smith to have more than 54.5 receiving yards against the Rams. Smith aligned in the slot on a career-high 46% of his snaps this season. That's more than double his rate during the first 3 seasons in the league, where it was 19%. He also gained 198 yards on hitch routes this season, more than he gained on any other route type. Since 2021, he now has 1,000 yards on hitches. That's second most in the NFL, just to Stephon Diggs, who has 1,015. If you want to tail this play, you can find it on Underdog and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash using the promo code NUMBERS. Do not miss the AFC primer and get your player projections, cheat sheet, my scores, all of that stuff. It's ready for you to use as of Wednesday, January 15th. And I say, keep coming back. Keep checking it out because as the injury reports and news breaks, I update all of the numbers as well. Thank you so much for hanging out. And if you like the show, please like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and pass it along so we can continue to grow.